Now, guess what? Deric is going to be getting Halloween ready all this week on the show. He's starting today in Glasnevin Cemetery.
Are we making him do it all week?
Yes, we're going to make him do it all week.
Deric, how are you getting on?
Am I doing a whole week of it, guys?
Yes, you are. I've now decided.
Oh, there we go. Thanks, Al. Anyway, no better place to kick off the sound celebrations than right down here at Glasnevin Cemetery. We have got Niamh and Elaina with us, otherwise known as
Detective Grey and Detective Paor.
Oh, you're going to get a slagging for that one, aren't you? From the team. Anyway, great to have you with us this morning. Ladies, first up, for anyone who doesn't know the history of the cemetery, Elaina, tell us a little bit about it.
Of course. So Glasnevin Cemetery was founded in 1832 by Daniel O'Connell, and the reason for the founding of this particular cemetery was because, due to the very strict penal laws placed upon Catholics living in Ireland, they didn't actually have the legal right to bury. So O'Connell really wanted to create a cemetery where people of all religions and people of no religions could be buried with dignity and respect, and that's still really important to us today.
Yeah, this in fact is the biggest cemetery in the country. How many people are buried here?
We have over 1.5 million people buried in this cemetery, so very big place. It's now the National Cemetery as well, and it's a very beautiful cemetery too.
Yeah, now a lot of people will be very familiar with the front part of the cemetery, which is of course the newer part. This in fact is the older Victorian part.
Of course, so everybody would be familiar with the entrance along the Finglas Road, where you have the O'Connell Monument, where Michael Collins is buried, Eamon de Valera, Countess Markievicz. But where we're standing today is the original 9 acres of the cemetery. So we're in the garden section at the old Victorian period. So it's our favourite part. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, and of course this is where you kick off your Samhain tours. Tell us a little bit about them.
So our Samhain tours have been designed by myself and Detective Paor. So we have designed these specifically for children. So Glasnevin has always run midterm tales for children throughout the midterm break. Tours for kids specifically. But this year it's a little bit different. The Samhain tours are brand new, and we're going to be teaching children about the history of Halloween and some old Celtic traditions as well.
Yeah, now speaking of the old traditions, and especially surrounding the dead as well, there's so many of them, isn't there, Niamh?
There is, yeah. I suppose Samhain is probably the most important Celtic festival that we celebrated. It's over 2,000 years old, and it was to celebrate the end of the harvest. So the end of the lighter half of the year, which we would know as the summertime, and then the start of the darker half of the year, which is obviously the winter time. So when it comes down to sort of Irish traditions specifically, we've kind of incorporated a lot of those Celtic traditions into modern day and into how do we mourn the dead as well.
Yeah, and you were telling me about the veil, and this is where it's at its thinnest at this time of year.
Yeah, so essentially what this meant is that the veil between the two worlds, so the land of the living and then the land of the dead, is essentially at its thinnest. So it meant spirits from the land of the dead, like the puka, the banshee, they could travel to the land of the living freely for one night only of the year.
Now, the Irish love a good funeral, totally, and we like to send them off in style, but there's so many traditions dating back hundreds of years. Talk us through some of them.
So, obviously, the Irish are probably most famous for their tradition surrounding death and how we kind of celebrate life more than we celebrate the actual death. So we've kind of incorporated a lot of traditions like covering mirrors or picture frames, any reflective surfaces in the house with a piece of black cloth, or to stop the clocks at the exact time of death, to trap the spirit in that moment, or to trap the spirit in the house so they can't stay or linger in the house where they had died. Another one that I had found when we were researching this tour was that you had to carry the coffin containing the body head first out of the door so that the spirit couldn't beckon others to follow them into the land of the dead.
Wow, so interesting, isn't it? Another old one that I spotted actually at the Wake Museum down in Waterford is that they used to cover the eyes with coins. Why so?
Yeah, so that actually goes all the way back to ancient Greece. And the whole kind of idea was you'd place 2 coins on either eye of the person so that they could pay the ferryman to travel the River Styx to bring them down into the underworld. And if you didn't have the coins placed in your eyes, it meant you couldn't pay your fare, and you're left to sort of wander the plane in sort of a limbo kind of situation, or what Christianity would have been known as like purgatory and stuff like that.
Okay, so you'd be buried with the coins.
Yeah, so that you could pay your fare.
Exactly, and that's what brings us and leads us on nicely, I suppose, to the fact of grave robbing and body snatching, because it was huge for many years, because the bodies were worth a lot of money, right?
Absolutely. So prior to the 1832 Anatomy Act, medical students and doctors, they weren't actually allowed to use dead bodies to develop their scientific knowledge. So doctors and the medical students back then, they weren't very good because they didn't know how the human body worked. So they would employ the poorest people living in the country at the time to do the dirty work for them. So these very poor, unemployed people would come into cemeteries late at night and try to dig up the bodies and then sell them on to medical students and doctors thereafter.
Well, Saved by the Bell as well. Where did that come from?
So obviously, like Elaina just said, doctors didn't really know much about the human body. So they used to mistake people who are sort of saying in like comas as being dead. So to kind of prevent people from being accidentally buried alive, they used to wrap a little bit of string around their finger, which would go through a sort of a steel pipe and connect to a bell just at the top of the grave, kind of next to the headstone. So if you had woken up in your coffin and realised I'm after being buried alive, you just have to tap your finger,
Tap the bell,
and it would ring the bell alerting the cemetery staff that you've been buried alive.
Wow. The yew trees behind us have significance as well. Why so?
So I suppose they go all the way back to Celtic mythology with that as well. So yew trees in Celtic mythology used to actually represent life and death. They're also known as witches' trees. So they were said to ward off evil spirits as well. In sort of modern day, the reason why you'll find yew trees most commonly planted in cemeteries is because they actually help keep cattle and sheep away from the graves. You can see that it produces a little red berry. It's quite toxic to cattle, and if they were to ingest, they could get very ill. So it kind of stops them from coming into the graveyards.
By the way, I know you both work here. Is this place haunted?
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Are there a lot of ghosts around here?
Well, we're gonna keep that for the tours.
Okay, yeah. We have a little trophy, so where can people find out more online?
People can find more online at dctrust.ie/experience Glasnevin. That's to book tickets and more information.
Okay, and everyone who comes down here, you win an award for best costume as well, which I absolutely love. Okay, Detective DePuer, Detective Gray, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you very much.
You are going to get a slagging over that. Back to studio. Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much, ladies.
Now, coming up on Ireland AM, we hear from a man who went from being told he'd never walk again to hiking over 260 kilometres.
Yes, plus we're learning how to turn the catwalk trends into everyday fashion. See you in a few minutes.